what it sounds like with you and Gabe up here all day?
Clapping cheeks.
All right, welcome to the RDB podcast, the original car shop podcast. I want to mention that. There's a lot of podcasts right now, but you guys know who kind of started that one. But here I have the folks over from 1016. Peter, he's been on the podcast, I think, a few times. I don't know if you were on it once, I think. Maybe.
I think I popped in once,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
He's been on some other podcasts also. But we haven't done a podcast for, I don't know, 3-4 months. And you guys have been asking, so we're going to start producing again. But and we have, like I said, special guests today. Moses is supposed to be here, but he's on a phone call. We'll see if he pops in. But welcome. We have some very exciting things to share and exciting times for cars. I know it's a weird time right now in the market, but we have two big new kits coming out. And it's for the new version Cullinan and the Revuelto. And they've created a really cool, unique experience to show off their kits, which I haven't seen anybody do. And they're here to explain it a little bit. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think this is like third or fourth time we've been on here. So, I mean, we've, always made a point of talking about, not just the kits, but the customer experience. And, half the battle is customers understanding a product without them actually being there. It's one thing to do renders. It's one thing to do photos. Everybody, when they, walk up behind the Urus Widebodies and the 720 in person, they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot wider than I thought. So the past couple of years, we've been working, on the VR space, which, while it is digital, it allows you to kind of like, as you just saw, it allows you to put on the headset and actually like experience, the product right in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to capture. It's like, okay, how do we get the client exactly their spec of the vehicle? How do we get the client, exactly the, whether it's 4 or 5 parts or the whole kit, how do we help the customer visualize, okay, here are the options. Here's what your car is actually going to look like. And that includes, being able to lower the car, changing the color of the car, actually changing the spec of the car. So the base car itself, if you have like blue surface, yellow interior, we can make that happen. Your caliper color, all those changes that you make when you do a full build with our program. Obviously, a lot of the time you do wraps, you do wheels, you do brakes, and a lot of people, they can't really visualize the whole thing put together. So our hope is, continuing to progress this program where, you have a customer that's 3 miles away and it takes you an hour to get there. All of a sudden you and him can communicate in a way that you both feel like you're right there with the car in front of you, being able to build the program, how they want it.
Yeah, we get a lot of customers out of state and it's just simple phone call text and we're doing a whole crazy build. But imagine we could be in the same place virtually talking about the car and the specs and the options, what pieces. And I mean, that's a totally really cool experience. If you're spending all that money, why not have that experience and have that in front of you,
And
Absolutely.
for us too, we have, obviously we sell these all over the world. So for us to be awake and available and providing customer service 24/7, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of these buys are compulsive. They're people are, rightfully so, very excited, very impatient. So our dealers all around the world, we want them to have an experience where they can, answer all the questions and visualize and, have all the information they need to make a sale in their time zone when the customer's available.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the other part of it is, as much as James and I like working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, sleeping is a thing. So this is also something where we hope to, be able to provide a better service and allow us to have a normal life.
Yeah, we started the Revuelto. I mean, we scanned the Revuelto, I think,
August.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's like a year coming up almost.
Seriously.
So
Feels
it's crazy. And we had one of the first West Coast Revueltos torn apart. I think it was the first on the street.
for sure.
We had it all torn apart. We didn't show the audience that back then because we didn't want to, show that. But we had the whole car apart. And it was an experience, car we've never seen before. It's here and we have to take it all apart. And scanned it and started developing it right away. The design was almost done like literally like quick. And
Yeah, because
it was cool.
July 2023, we went to Goodwood in the UK and we actually saw the car in person. I think it got released in like May of 23, and I just like stood there for an hour, taking videos, taking pictures. And so since July 2023, we've been slowly but surely working through how we can make this car, even better than it already is. So, so by the time we went to scan, I mean, we were actually pretty much there, and we had already actually built 3D model,
Yeah.
which is different than CAD. We'd already built the 3D model of all the parts and kind of optimized how we thought we wanted it to be. But obviously, as you know, every single time we get a new car, you know, you make a design and then you're like, okay, well, there's a radar sensor here, which we learned. There's radar sensors on all four corners. Okay, so there can't be carbon fiber there. And then there's other things, you know, like, okay, the car comes apart differently than we thought.
Yep.
And also, as we've seen, which Lamborghini has been doing quite extensively, we've learned not to, you know, even if we have access, we've learned not to use development cars because the actual production parts, when the car comes out, they've changed quite a lot. So we've gotten burned by that a couple of times where, you know, a pre-production car might have some parts from an old vehicle. And then when the actual production car comes out, it's not actually, you know, what we're going to have to
No, I mean, and especially the Revuelto, because the Revuelto is like a new baby and it's going through many different problems. I even realized the problem with them from the early ones, they had a hood opening error. I don't know if you guys heard about that. A lot of people were driving and it says hood's open and they couldn't figure it out. And we realized that Lamborghini, I guess they saw this problem and they tried to fix it last minute quickly. They added like a hood pin switch, those old school like switches.
It's right at the
and they just put it like inside of the front right there. Even though it has a sensor on the latch, I guess that sensor maybe is like malfunctioning. So they added that, and I know they added that because the way that touches the hood, there's nothing on the hood. They put like a little double tape little thing there.
That's what we were saying when we took it apart. It kind of looked like, and again, I've been through the process of going through OEM car releases, and that might have been one of those things where they were like, you know, it's one of those last minute design considerations where they didn't
600 plus car.
But that's the thing, you know, timing is
ship it. Yeah.
Timing is always critical to, you know, progress and plans for the manufacturing, the and everything. It may have been one of those things where they're like, okay, we're only seeing like 10% of the cars have an issue, and then they already had a worked out solution, and they're like, well, until people complain,
we'll crazy. I feel like they took a while to release that car, you know, so they had all that time, and then also they fixed the problem with another problem, so it didn't get fixed. That double tape button would come off, and it would move, so the pin switch wasn't even getting pressed down, so people were still having that problem. And a couple of them actually we figured out and fixed and made a better little button on it. So that's crazy.
I think there's also like you know, coming out of COVID and then coming out of like what particular environmental mandate was going to go through or not. A lot of these companies were like partially the way through you know, hybrid development, and they started to have supply chain issues. They started to have, you know, all these different problems, and you know, like obviously the Artura just completely crashed, and the first batch of cars that got delivered, you know, they took all the cars back. I mean, I canceled mine because I got the car delayed 7 or 8 times, and you know, they ended up, I think, really not going through with the platform. So these hybrid EV platforms are definitely a little bit challenged. I mean, I think the SF90 was probably the one that made it out.
Yeah, right now all we see are videos on Instagram being made about car values, and the SF90, which is like uncharted territory for Ferrari to lose that much value. And such a great car, the SF90, by the way. Like, it's great. The first year they had some little issues. Our smoking problem made it all over the internet viral, but we haven't seen a problem ever since then. The SF90 has been pretty solid, and they're tanking. You know, so it's crazy to see the hybrid game that they stepped into. They're probably regretting it now because now their cars are getting soft.
I mean, you look at design cycles though, and like what they're trying to push, and I mean, even we have the same conversation with the business we have with parts. You know, the amount of technology and how fast it's evolving. When you're repackaging and doing a new model, like look at the Murcielago to the Aventador. That was even a pretty large change from like original E-Gear to kind of like the Aventador platform. There's a lot of technology, but now when you're releasing a new product, you have all of these new variables and all these things trying to work together that haven't really ever been proven in a production platform. And so now you're gonna have the Urus SE, you're gonna have the Temerario, you're gonna have the Revuelto that are all hybrid platforms. So it's gonna be interesting to see.
I think for the Urus it works because it's like an SUV, but for the Revuelto it's like a little, you know, I think the hybrids are awesome because they add more torque and fast. The SF90 is so fast. Yeah. I think it's cool.
It gives you all-wheel drive traction too.
Yeah, which we didn't have before. You know, I was fiddling with E46 M3 with 1,200 horsepower, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get traction. What's the point of that? You know, like I put drag slicks just to do it and it broke my whole rear end apart. Like, just stupid. And we have a Ford GT here, a Hefner twin turbo, our good buddy Chamba bought. Sick ass car, sounds insane.
Yeah.
You can't drive it. Like you literally, like you get on it and you think you're just gonna die. Like it's just
It's half the fun.
very scary. You don't want to shift because that's when a lot of people lose control. Is when you shift and you break traction, you lose control entirely. So I drove that car around with Hank too, and we were like trying to take it easy, but like the new cars are they just go and no problem.
But I think a lot of people are kind of like pushing back against that. I mean, I think the amount of, I would say, older, not necessarily classic, but like 80s, 90s, like Diablos, like what people want to buy right now is an experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the newer cars are almost like you're on autopilot. There's not as much feel. There's a lot of interception. The car is making a lot of assumptions for the driver. So from a driving perspective, I think a lot of people, I mean, even me, I bought a CLK 63 Black Series.
Yeah.
Like nothing, no electronic intervention, like has adjustable
different
coilovers.
feeling.
Yeah, the cars have gotten to the point where it's like, okay, have you gone a little bit too far with making this, like a knife-edged, computer operated vehicle? And I think, even me, I don't see too many cars coming out right now that I would be running out to go get. I mean, I'm curious about the Temerario. I mean, it's going to be a great platform. The design language, it's odd.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I've looked at what they said they took, inspiration from, and I don't see it. But obviously, that platform is going to be very high volume.
So I mean, the Urus SE is going to hit though, I think, and I'm pretty sure, confidently going to say we're going to be the first wide body Urus SE, hopefully, which we did with the Performante.
Yep.
We're the first in the world. The SE. Let's see. I know you're gonna lose a lot of sleep over that car for sure.
We're already seeing a lot of demand for it. Funny enough, I mean,
they're coming. They're like almost here. Pretty much.
Next few months. Yeah.
But again, we learned our lesson. We've had the opportunity to use development cars, and we actually saw one of the first dealer demo cars, and like the interior was different, the front lip was different, the diffuser was different. So had we gone and done our development process already, we would kind of be reworking a lot of the work we already did. So the Urus, it's kind of been like a facelift platform. We already know what we think won't change. We already know what we're going to have to get ourselves into.
Yeah.
It's not a huge tear up. I mean, I think the hardest part on that car is going to be the line down the rear, the rear hatch. It's going to be difficult to work around, how, again, and the lights are higher, there's a lot more, trunk on that car. So it's going to be, it's gonna be a little bit.
It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. I've always been curious about this. How many Urus kits have you sold?
I have no idea.
We lost count a long time ago.
How many? Is it over 200 kits?
Yeah, 100%.
Way more.
Yeah, 100%.
Way more.
500 kits?
Probably more.
Probably more than that.
That's a lot of kits for a car. Like that's like almost unheard of. And I've been in this industry for a long time, and that's like it's kind of crazy if you think about it.
It kind of broke the mold with our general rule of thumb, which is trying to be 10 to 15 max 20% of the vehicle value when you have a full built program. It's just like the G-Wagon. I mean, people are spending close to the value of the car to do these build outs, so it's kind of like a weird. Not weird in a bad way, but it was like one of those things where our classic business model just didn't apply to that platform at all.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, all these new cars, unfortunately, I feel like they're getting too expensive for how the market is, like the per song way. I mean, that's just a crazy expensive car that kind of doesn't make sense in my opinion. Yeah. It should be like Urus, maybe a little 20 grand more than the Urus, but like almost double a Urus. That's like, I don't know. And the Urus, in my opinion, is still a better car. I mean, I get a V12, but those suicide doors, I don't think anybody likes that. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know. It's not catching, but
kind of coming after the Cullinan.
But yeah, and then we're gonna be doing a few. We're gonna be stancing up. Finally, we could lower them. So let's see what happens. But the Urus is still king, and I think the SE, is gonna do good again for us because we've personally done maybe 40, 50 wide body Uruses. It's a crazy thing about that,
and it's interesting because like as you've gone from the traditional Gen 1 Urus through the S and the Performante, then to the SE, I actually think the design language has gotten less aggressive.
Yeah, I agree.
think the original Urus,
I agree.
The original Urus definitely
100%.
had the most aggressive style off the bat, and then like the Performante and the S have like the horizontal slots, and it softened up the front. And now you have the SE where it's super soft on the front and the rear. So it's like, okay, how do we take what we've done and modify it to a little bit softer of language, but make the difference that makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
going to take a little bit of refinement, but obviously the general idea of what we do works. It's just like some of those interesting features, like the fact that there's no top to the bumper now, and just
Yeah.
like the Revuelto, the hood is the
Yeah.
top of the bumper. So it's like, okay, you're modifying the hood, and it's going to.
By the way, that's very bad for car accidents because when you get into accident, you have to replace two things instead of one.
It's good for Lambo. Good for Lambo.
You know,
Good for the passenger.
we've had a few secret Revueltos we needed to fix. Actually, quite a few of them, and they all had the same problem. And yeah, it was not fun
I
fixing
think
those.
definitely the success of the Urus is, I mean, one of the main attributes was the modularity of that kit.
True.
Being able to pick up narrow body parts and then convert to a wide body without having to do anything.
Yeah, and they just look so good.
I think that's also a great segue to talk about the design language of the Revuelto kit as well. So designing that, same concept in mind. We want people to be able to take the narrow body, build that narrow body out, and if they decide they want to go with a wide body as well, they can do that after the fact. So a lot of these kits you're seeing, you know,
I'm excited.
very costly entry points.
We actually, can we talk about that? The test kit?
Yep.
Yeah.
We had a car in. It's a
Premium OC.
premium
Yep,
OC's car, and it's that crazy funky color. I don't know, color, chameleon color, whatever they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they wrapped in color switching.
Mr. Chrome wrap. Yeah.
So we actually got a whole wide body kit. You guys sent a whole wide body kit here, literally 3D printed. A whole car. Like, kind of crazy. We took the whole car apart and we put all those parts on there just to see. I haven't seen anybody ever do that as far as a body kit manufacturer, and that takes a lot of obviously money and time and all that.
So I mean that
crazy.
goes to like the back end kind of like what we work on besides just body kits. I mean, a lot of people don't see the other technologies such as the VR and the production refinement technologies that make my brain happy. But you know, that's one of the easiest ways to validate. You know, a lot of people. You know, it's funny when we've released the renders, and a lot of people, you know, look at the car and they're like, "What parts are yours?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What parts are ours?" It's like, "What part isn't ours for the wide body?" Because we did full replacement for the fenders, full replacement for the quarter panels. It's like the only thing missing off that car that we didn't design is the doors and the roof.
Yeah.
So you know, it really is same as the 720. It's replacing the entire body of the car. So you know, obviously, as James said, traditionally speaking, you know, we design our narrow body components to fit underneath the wide body.
Yeah.
You know, for one reason or another, whether it's, you know, legislative, you can't have a car that wide, you don't want to go that wide. You know, the narrow body kit, you know, it has all those aggressive design points, but then if you really want that look, which I can't look at I can't look at a stock narrow body Urus anymore.
Yeah.
Like once you see it, it's
don't have to tell me
something
that.
it's something you can't unsee. But again, that 3D printing process makes sure that, you know, from your perspective, you know, we know that the car can go together properly. If you have any feedback on, okay, you know, we can't get a screwdriver in here, we can't take this bolt out, this is interfering with this, you know, we'd prefer to have this attached, you know, the way it is. It's as critical for us to understand how the car goes together and make sure that you can put it together in a way that's efficient for you and efficient for your customer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what people don't understand is, you know, it's one thing to make a front lip, right? It's a whole other thing to make a replacement component that has all the brackets, has all the adjustment points, has, you know, has the ability to be as versatile as a flexible plastic fender, for example, but it's made out of a rigid piece of carbon fiber. So it's been an iterative process of how do we, you know, get to the quality and the complexity we want, and make sure before we spend all that money on tooling that everything's right.
No, it's crazy. I mean, we say that and we're sitting in front of a full carbon fiber table.
Yeah.
It's like, that's still crazy to me. I mean, the design could have been a little different, but like what it is pretty impressive. It's
cool.
It's made out of full carbon, and it actually opens.
And there's structural spars too. I mean,
and
that's something that, you know, like, again, it's very light. You know, it's obviously people can't, you know, they can see it, but they, you know, opening that thing up, it's feather light. So this is actually, you know, very well made.
It's one of one right there.
Structural carbon.
Made by our good friend Rafik. But yeah, it's the Revuelto's exciting. We're going to obviously have to try to stance that up. So that's going to be the other factor here. And that's the most important to me with wide body kits is the stance. Like I really lose sleep over like the build here, like to make the stance right. You know, I play with even my car from when we did it. You remember I was playing with 2mm spacers on the back, literally 2mm. Like I was trying to like perfect it. And I mean, 5 plus years later, the car still looks better than almost any car on the road and drives great. There's no problem, like except my engine, but you know.
Yeah, and then the other couple of things we learned through this process is, you know, we had to limit the width of the car so we fit on transport trucks.
Yeah, the transport problems.
So like, so we've learned, okay, here's
87. What was that?
85.
85.
So,
I think my car's at 87.
So the Revuelto's at 83.5. So obviously the trucks have developed, but that was one. And then we obviously spaced out the front wheels ahead of time and did that test fender.
Yeah.
And we made sure that, okay, if the wheel track goes out by 40 millimeters when we turn, are we gonna have rubbing issues?
Yeah.
The fender well. So there are things that like a lot of people don't really think about when it goes into actually doing the wide body. It's a much more complex.
That's why I mean you see wide bodies out there that, I mean, they still look good, but they don't have that crazy look because they have the gap or the wheels are a little too in. And I don't know if they did that just because some places don't care about what it comes out to. We really care about the outcome, but yeah, if we're trying to stand it up perfectly and we're doing a wide body Revuelto, you have to make sure the clearances are there, and it's tough. It's tough to get that set up, you know. And the Revuelto sits on 2122s already, so it's gonna be fun.
And we tested it with the factory tires, which in my opinion, I don't, you know, the profiles are what we normally see, but they seem to be like overly chunky for some reason.
Yeah.
The bridge stones,
So we were able to, you know, clear with more aggressive tires than I think people will probably put on their aftermarket set. So hopefully, you know, just like my 720, things, you know, almost touching the ground, floating at all times, you know. Like you said, you know, we all take pride in like the individuality of our cars and setting it up that way, setting it low, flush, you know, all those things. You know, obviously I had to do a little bit of Dremel work, Dremel artistry on my fender liners.
You got to do it. I've cut Cullinan frames to fit 26-inch wheels on it. I just recently had to move a whole radiator coolant line for a G-Wagon because the tires were too big. But these are things you have to do to really get that look, you know. Put the extra effort, it really affects the whole car. And it's...
Well, you know me, like I had with the 720, I actually ended up 3D printing metal, new uprights on the top suspension, to be able to actually adjust the suspension properly and still have the ride at that height. So, I mean, I think, you know, obviously there's certain people that want to do that. There's certain people that just want it to bolt on and drive. You know, it's definitely, you kind of have to cater to both, but obviously, you know, part of your craft, part of what your wizardry is okay, we give you a product, but how you put that product together with other things and how you make that, you know, as aggressive as possible. And then the little details that go into, okay, how do you make this a unique product, even though it's a quote unquote off the shelf kit from us, you know, and that's also part of, you know, like how we make the parts. You know, we send you hoods full cleared. And you have, you know, with the Urus, for example, there was like 6 different patterns you could wrap the hood. Yeah. It's like, you know, we purposely, you know, designed this to let the client kind of decide, okay, how do you really want the car to look? You know, there's obviously specific lines, there's specific ways we think it looks best, but we have the ability, you know, for the client to decide, you know, how they want to individualize each one of the components we sell. Okay. And then the Cullinan obviously is the other big one. I think it was, you know, from our standpoint, parts wise, it wasn't a huge tear up. But I think that the front end was definitely controversial in terms of, you know, the combination of that, you know, drooped DRL with that kind of like smiling lower mouth. It was definitely a large departure. I think we saw with the G-Wagon though that vertical slat look was kind of like
very in right now.
It was it's a design choice by the industry. So with the new kit, we've kept those vertical slats. But I think we cleaned it up in a way that the design...
You're talking about the Cullinan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Series 2.
So we have 3 cars at the shop just sitting. One of them, we actually took the bumpers off. So we're waiting on these guys to get us this new kit. It's going to be wild. We built 3 of them at the same time, like right when we get the kits. So I think that's going to be one of our next big cars. The Cullinans are always been good for us. And the version 2 is... You know, needs the same love, needs that wide body.
It's been interesting. It's been interesting to see that market develop too. Because I mean, back in the day when the first Cullinan came out, it was all color matched, right? Yeah. And then we saw a wave of forged carbon, which we traditionally would put on hypercars, not necessarily, you know, luxury SUVs. I mean, the Urus obviously because it was a Lamborghini product. Yeah. But it's interesting. You know, obviously we'll offer it in forged carbon, and then I made the decision that you know like. Little OCD details, you open the doors and you have a black badge. Yeah. Wouldn't it make sense to have the same material on the outside? So I think, 2 of the first 3 that we're going to build are black badge material.
Yeah, another one's
so
forged.
that's something that's
I'm doing 26s on 2 of them.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like monster setups. Like one's a full face silver with the white Cullinan. I think that's gonna be like insane, and that's the forged carbon. Yeah, that's the forged carbon one
on the white.
So white with forged carbon with the RDB 0 wheels and 26. I think that's gonna be a crazy build. The black one's getting signature wheels 26, and Chambas is getting the 24-inch. But he wants the same wheels. He had a Novatec Cullinan. And he loved it. It was just one of his favorite cars, but got rid of it. So we're gonna be this new build right here, and it's gonna be a fun time. And we should be doing a Revuelto around the same time as well.
A few of them.
Yeah,
so
I think there's gonna be I think like we kind of bogged down in last couple months of the year. We did a lot of, as we said, the logistics of actually organizing, making, shipping, getting these parts to where they need to go. On top of the other aspects of even producing them is a whole other thing. So we worked really hard along with this VR configurator. We're like, okay, we're going to pour all this work into the back end customer service side of our business so that, we can deliver the product.
Yeah. I mean, literally I work with every brand out there, and the single most best factor for me is availability, honestly speaking, because customers they don't want to wait 2-3 months for a kit to come or whatever, even wheels. But if I could hit up Peter and be like, hey, I need to wide body Urus, he's like, when? I'm like, oh, the car's coming tomorrow. and I'm like, problem. Okay, you'll have the parts, next day, whatever. And that's huge. We got Dandy Hats as a client, and his Urus came, and I needed a kit pretty fast. And again, like 2 days, I have the kit, and I started on it. That car could be done. That could be a full 1 week process. Wide bodied Urus done. So I think that's crucial for cars.
I think the other aspect that we've talked about is, it's great having composite products, and I mentioned it earlier, but we've spent the better part of 16 months developing what I'm comfortable with as like a polyurethane plastic-based material, which, again, the factory parts that come off this car, they're flexible. We've heard the excuse, everybody seems to think it's an excuse in our industry. It's like, oh, well, that doesn't fit. It's like, well, no, when you go through the development process, you do your best guess, like the intermediate area of making a solid composite part. So moving forward, that Urus flare, those Cullinan flares, a lot of these products that we can make in plastic, we will. We're just going through the final validation phase of, shock testing, UV, stuff like that, so it doesn't warp, it doesn't flex, it doesn't fail under driving conditions. So, that'll be something this year that we roll out.
Excited, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good year. Hopefully, we have also Trump back in. So, I have a bone to pick with you, James.
What's that? I'm ready for it.
I heard you said Urus owners have to share their cars or something.
Oh yeah, the old Urus shared problem. Obviously, it's different for shop owners, but I mean, it's very interesting.
Has he turned red yet? I can't remember.
No,
is this vein out?
I'm always.
Is this vein out?
Oh no, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Oh man, I mean,
that was funny.
I've seen that with every car, not just the Urus, but
no, it's a very LA thing.
The Urus is, I feel like, I guess there's people that share cars, right? But the Urus, I feel like, is one of those that they get for the wives and this and that. Like I just feel like the Urus is so good that people got them, and they weren't too expensive.
But it gives
it started at like $240.
The value on that is just, it's unmatched. It's hard. Like that platform, that Folio platform is shared across so many.
I mean, 4 years later, you're still having cars selling at MSRP almost.
I mean, like for a SUV, like
depreciation. But it was I think it's still the best transition of, okay, you want your Huracan feel, but you want to take your 3 friends with you. Like I still like like the Cullinan is very luxurious. It's more like a yacht. Like it's whatever. Obviously there's some other things like the RSQ8 and the Cayenne and stuff like that. But like when you want that exotic car feel, like, and you want to take your friends, I mean, they knocked it out of the park. I haven't
even the interior. It's really nice. I mean, I've been driving 6 years, whatever. I still get like the excitement when I drive it every day. Like I don't get that with like other. I don't know. It's weird. It's just been a weird experience once you have a Urus.
The funniest thing about you bringing that up now too is the guy that I was actually talking about. Like I wasn't trying to throw shade, but
No,
the guys that I was thinking about when I was, on that podcast actually live.
Seriously.
No,
Here
they
comes the
live
backpedaling.
really close here.
Here comes the 20-minute story.
Well, hold on. It's 4 ecom guys in one house in Hollywood, and all 4 of them are splitting payments on a Huracan 610 and like a 45, 50.
So not all ecom guys are rich, is what you're saying.
None of them are rich.
See, now he's going into another quarter.
No,
what else? Who else are we going to insult?
There's a lot of ecom guys making money.
But I mean, I get it. I feel like it's either what you said, or it's normal people like me, or it's rent-a-cars. Rent-a-car is a huge thing right now. It's just everything's a rent-a-car. I feel like almost, and that's a wild experience. Anybody could get their car and put it on Turo, next day.
Yeah, but I think like with the rental car business, a lot of people have taken the model of renting cars that are privately owned by others, and that's going to be something that blows up. It's been like simmering, but like, I think you've probably seen it where like some cars come in and somebody's rented it and it's under somebody's personal policy, and then there's a whole like person that owns the car, their insurance is going to pay to fix it. Like it becomes a mess. So I think it's like it's a loophole, but it's not a legal loophole that a lot of people they'll get a car on their credit and then they'll throw it into somebody's rental fleet, but that's not technically legal to do. And when you get into a situation where the car is stolen or there's an accident or something like that, you're probably not going to get covered by your insurance company because it goes against your lease.
The great thing about Turo is Turo has their own insurance.
Yeah. I feel like most
people
of
do that all the time now.
That was something that popped up like 2021, 2022 when the COVID money started leaving.
Yeah.
And everyone had these cars that were financed based on the fact they were making extra $1,400 every 2 weeks thanks to stimmy checks. So,
but how are all these rent-a-car company owners affording Bugattis for themselves and
that's what we're
like
talking about
wild lifestyles? All of a sudden, I feel like everybody on the internet is about like lifestyle instead of like they're just showing off their money, especially in Miami right now. Miami's really hot with money, but I've been seeing that pop up, and obviously everybody's becoming a fucking influencer or
I think
motivational speaker or whatever.
I think Miami's a simple case. I mean, it's weird to me that it took so long for people to grasp onto Miami. I mean, I lived there 14 years now, and like I love it. Like everything you could ever want in a city is in Miami. And it was always crazy to me that the influencer boom was out here in California. Like you go out to Florida, obviously there's a tax advantage that you don't have income tax, state income tax.
Very
well,
true.
everyone's moving there.
Everything, most stuff there is less expensive on a general basis. Your sales tax is less. It's definitely a hot environment. But
I agree with you, man.
Curious,
I don't know.
It's curious to me that it took so long, and it took COVID and everybody not wanting to deal with
I think it's the crimes. The crimes fucked it all up here.
For sure.
Because look, LA, you have to remember LA, I mean, you're looking at it now where we have crimes and unfortunately fires and stuff like that. But like back in the day, LA was the restaurant scene was the best. Shopping, weather obviously is still the best in my opinion. I don't think anywhere beats LA weather, Florida has crazy humidity. I can't personally deal with that. I don't know.
I mean, I agree. Like I don't even know how I was, I don't know. It seems like it's gotten worse, but I think it's just like, once you live there long enough, you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, obviously I'm from New York and I got used to Miami weather. It's one of those things where once you get used to it, you get used to it. Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I hope LA bounces back and still becomes what it was. But we'll see. I mean, again, we have a new presidency that has already made bigger changes than anybody ever has in 2 weeks. So we're very hopeful. But also LA has to rebuild now because of the fires. I was literally like, for the people that don't see LA, whatever, and you don't know the area, like how many houses burned down in areas is insane.
It was crazy when we came back from Tokyo. We landed before the sun came up, and like he was asleep, but I took a video out the window, and there was just like that whole area, the Palisades fire. Like there was a huge, like all the lights were there, and then the amount of area where it was pure black with no lights that got burned. Like perspective of like insane. How from an aircraft, like how big that burn area is it was stunning, honestly. Because I was expecting to come back and actually see the fire still burning at that point. I think it was like the 14th or 15th. It wasn't necessarily burning, but like just seeing that entire blank area with no lights.
Yeah.
It was honestly kind of spooky, like flying, because you're flying across the coast, going to LAX, and it was like wow, like that is a really, really substantial part of the skyline.
It was insane. And like,
Yeah.
obviously people are saying, you know, why didn't the firefighters get it under control? There was no water, this, that, but like people weren't here. We had like, I mean, I've never been hurricane, but we had like 100-mile-per-hour winds in LA, and we're not ready for that in LA. Like trees everywhere falling. Tree fell on my house, not that bad, but it fell on my house even. And like, imagine a fire started and there's 100-mile-per-hour winds. The fire was jumping like 5 miles.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's crazy.
Well, that was like
that's
that was like the
insane.
one in Santa Clarita. Like it burned 10,000. That was like what, last week, and it got put out, but it burned 10,000 acres in one day.
Yeah,
It's just like you know, there's a lot of criticism, but it's like, how are you really supposed to stop that?
So those neighborhoods, there's not even that much footage of like the houses burning. There is some, but imagine that whole neighborhood was on fire. There's no footage of that really because, dude, there's 100-mile-per-hour winds at the time. It's dangerous. Everybody had to evacuate, you know?
Well, we were in Tokyo, and it's crazy. The Sprinter that you guys finished burned down. Like, I mean, I feel like everyone knows someone that was affected by that, but, you know.
It's wild.
I think the other thing that like surface level, but like the amount of electric cars that caught on fire, and like how do you put
I was going to say that.
the battery fires created a whole other variable that, you know, like
if they had a Tesla in the garage, it's
I haven't really, you know, done too much research, but it seems to me that, you know, putting out electrical vehicle fires or battery-based fires is still a really big problem. And it's like, you know, what do you do to deal with that exacerbating the situation that's already out of control?
Very true,
yeah.
And like the other thing is like, I didn't realize how flammable houses are. Like literally, like the balcony catching on fire, and then all of a sudden the whole house is like blazing.
Think about like a 60-year-old house with very little humidity out here. The wood is going to be extremely dry, right?
Well, the amount of houses that still have asbestos in it, that is
that too. Yeah, the insulations, all that stuff catches. Yeah. I mean, let's see how they're going to rebuild with. I don't know what coding they're going to do, new codes, new building laws. I don't know.
They seem to be stripping back all the coding and permitting.
They're going to have
process. No, I mean, I know, but like, what's that really going to do long term? If you strip back strip back all the due diligence that you put in terms of coding and building permits and all that stuff, like, is it going to end up making a worse situation? Who knows? All I know is that, you know, that combination of a lot of houses built out of wood in that type of environment doesn't seem to be something that works. You know, obviously, I've seen a lot of different types of building. You know, people have come on, like, there's a new, like, you can build your house out of foam bricks now. I've seen a lot of that.
3D print your house.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you know that you can do it now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just think that community was, you know, built a long time ago, and you know, it's odd because, I mean, I guess you don't have a ton of earthquakes here, but you would think, you know, that probably played into why they wasn't.
We've always had fires here, really, but we didn't really have much structures burned with fires. It's always like in the mountain, and then they get under control. But this variable with the wind, like that wind was insane. Like you couldn't stand outside, like how windy it was, and we don't have that usually here. And that with the fire, it's a recipe for what happened. Exactly.
Yeah, I just, you know, obviously, you know, we just hope that those people are able to get covered and that they get the assistance.
I mean, the Palisades one is insane. It's in front of the beach, those beachfront ones, and then the Eaton one, which is in Altadena. The same thing happened there. I mean, so many houses lost over there. Palisades obviously is Palisades, so people are talking about that more. But the Altadena one is same kind of damage, so it sucks. And you know, I hope the government steps in and helps them and businesses. A lot of businesses went down too. But in general, a lot of businesses went down because of COVID and the repercussions. So hopefully it all changes and we do more body kits and RDB wheels and what else? RDB Auto Care. We're playing with that again, trying to bring it up. But merchandise, we stopped doing merchandise, so hopefully we're gonna bring that back up. A lot more to come, you know, and you're gonna be seeing a lot of wide body cars again popping up. So stay tuned for that. But it was a good podcast, right?
Yeah.
Very technical.
Good to be back on. Well, it's me. What do you expect?
I'll get Moses and Mono back in here on the next one, and we'll just clown each other more there. But the technical stuff's really cool to hear. Obviously, as business side of it, if you guys are, you know, curious about business owners and that kind of thing, it's great to hear.
You know, the application for that, you know, we're doing it as a, you know, a sales environment, which is, you know, obviously, you know, me, I test everything from 16. That's going to be a product that's available to, any brand that has a product. You know, like you want to spec out your Learjet, cool. You want to spec out your yacht, cool. Like you want to try on clothes, cool. So it's something where, you know, just a tool that's a little bit beyond that. And then obviously you and I have discussed the long-term use of VR for mental health and medical benefits is something that's super important to all of us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, giving people care and the ability to heal and providing, you know, resources that traditionally, you know, are hard to get. So I think, you know, a lot of people see the cars, they see the body kits, they see the, you know, the really expensive stuff. But, you know, I think all of us, you know, believe in the same things and
of course,
at the end of the day, care about people. So that's kind of why it's, you know, really, you know, caught with me, you know, hopefully, you know, the next year we'll start developing the products a lot more and being able to give back to a lot more people. So
it's great. Let's keep it rocking. I love the new stuff, you know, new stuff is exciting. And again, we could have fun with it. We could help people. We could consult people. We could do so many things with it, and a lot to come with that. So on that note, thanks for watching, and we'll start the RDB podcast up soon.